Picture this. You're grilling Sunday dinner when three fake cops in Halloween badges storm your property, threatening to seize your livestock and shut down the ranch that's fed your family for 70 years. That's exactly what happened to me. I'm Dalton Mitchell, and these fraudulent HOA enforcement officers were about to destroy everything my grandfather built. Until they made one fatal mistake. See, they didn't know my cousin Jake happens to be the actual sheriff of this county. The smell of mesquite smoke mixed with diesel fumes from their pathetic golf cart as they waved around laminated citations and demanded I pay $2,400 immediately or watch my cattle get impounded. These clowns had no idea they'd just declared war on the wrong family. What would you do if fake authorities tried to steal your life's work? And where are you watching from? Does your area have power-hungry HOA psychos like mine? Let me back up and tell you how this war started. My name's Dalton Mitchell, and I run a 47-acre cattle ranch outside Millbrook County, Texas. This land has been in my family since 1952, when my grandfather bought it with his GI Bill money after surviving 3 years in Korean foxholes. Here's what was at stake. I'm recently divorced, my 2 teenage kids visit weekends, and this ranch isn't just my business, it's their inheritance. I pull $180K annually, selling premium Angus beef direct to customers who actually give a damn about quality. Lose the ranch, lose everything. 5 years ago, paradise ended. Some developer built Sage Creek Estates right next door. McMansions starting at $400K with community pools and the kind of neighbors who call cops when roosters crow at dawn. They promised rural character preservation, which apparently meant keeping the pretty cow views while strangling the actual ranching. Then came Vivian Cromwell. Picture a 52-year-old real estate shark from Dallas with a mission to elevate property values and the warmth of an IRS audit. Always clutching her leather portfolio like a weapon, driving a spotless white Lexus that's allergic to dirt, speaking only in corporate buzzwords that make your soul itch. The day she first invaded my property, I heard her stilettos stabbing my gravel driveway. Sharp clicks like a countdown timer to trouble. Her perfume hit me from 20 feet away, some chemical flower bomb that made my cattle nervous and my sinuses burn. It clashed violently with the honest smells of hay, diesel, and yes, cow shit that define real work. "Mr. Mitchell," she announced, slapping a glossy violation notice into my calloused hands like she was serving a warrant. "Your operation is in serious violation of community standards. Get this. According to her fantasy legal document, my ranch falls under expanded HOA jurisdiction due to shared water rights." She'd written herself authority over my land through some bureaucratic word salad. My grandfather's 1987 Ford tractor, unsightly equipment, my cattle, inappropriate livestock odors. Hell, even my original 1950s barbed wire was somehow non-conforming materials. I stayed calm, pulled out my property deeds, surveys, tax records. "Ma'am, my family's been here since before your subdivision was even a developer's wet dream." That's when her corporate smile turned predatory. "Things change, Mr. Mitchell. Communities evolve. Those who can't adapt, well, let's just say stubborn people often find themselves very, very uncomfortable. I'd hate to see you lose everything over pride." The threat hit like ice water. This wasn't about compliance. This was extortion with a smile. Within 48 hours, she started billing me $500 daily for every imaginary violation she could invent. $500 a day for the crime of ranching on ranch land. Do the math. That's $182,500 annually, more than my entire income. But here's where it gets really ugly. My realtor buddy called with a tip. "Dalton, someone's been showing your property to developers. They're planning something big. Vivian wasn't trying to fix violations. She was manufacturing a crisis to steal my land." That night, sitting on my porch watching my cattle graze in the sunset, something my grandfather told me echoed in my head. "Son, bullies count on good people being too tired to fight back. The moment you stop fighting is the moment you lose everything that matters." Vivian Cromwell had just declared war on the wrong family. She thought she was dealing with some country bumpkin who'd roll over for a few legal papers and threats. What she didn't know was that my family had been defending this dirt for 70 years, and we'd learned a thing or two about fighting dirty when necessary. The smell of evening barbecue drifted from Sage Creek Estates while my cattle lowed softly in the distance. Two worlds about to collide. Game on, lady. 2 weeks after Vivian's threat, she pulled what I can only describe as the world's most pathetic military coup. She hired HOA enforcement solutions. Three wannabes in fake police uniforms cruising my neighborhood in modified golf carts, like they were patrolling Fallujah instead of harassing cattle ranchers. The ringleader was Buck Hargrove, 38 years old, former mall cop, current Napoleon complex with a badge. His navy polyester uniform squeaked when he walked and made him sweat like a marathon runner in Death Valley. The smell of his nervous perspiration mixed with cheap cologne created this uniquely awful cloud that preceded him everywhere. Tuesday morning, I'm replacing fence posts when this pathetic whirring sound approaches. Buck's golf cart puttered up my drive, amber lights flashing like he was responding to nuclear meltdown instead of bothering a guy with a shovel. "Sir, step away from that equipment immediately," Buck announced, heaving himself out of his cart with all the authority of a hall monitor having a breakdown. My cattle gathered at the fence line, watching this performance with what I swear was bovine amusement. Even my cows knew this was ridiculous. "Agricultural Violation Citation 47B, Buck continued, reading from a laminated card like it was the Constitution. "Unauthorized fence modification without HOA approval. You have 15 minutes to cease operations and pay $2,400, or we impound your livestock." That's when I got my first good look at his official badge. Plastic. Spray-painted gold. The kind of thing my kids used to wear playing cops and robbers, except my teenagers had better sense than to threaten adults with Halloween props. While Buck lectured me about community compliance protocols, I discreetly Googled HOA enforcement solutions on my phone. The website was 3 weeks old, registered to Vivian's cousin's landscaping company. Their police training certification came from a $39.99 online course that took 20 minutes to complete. Years ago, my brother-in-law got arrested for wearing his security guard uniform to a bar fight. The cops explained that impersonating peace officers in Texas carries up to a year in jail and $4,000 fines. These clowns were committing actual felonies while pretending to enforce imaginary laws. Instead of confronting Buck directly, never interrupt enemies making mistakes, I started my counteroffensive. Phone recording everything, trail cameras positioned around property perimeter, detailed time-stamped notes. If they wanted to play dress-up, I'd document every ridiculous second. That afternoon, I canvassed Sage Creek residents. Discovered Vivian had been billing the HOA $50,000 annually for professional security services that consisted of 3 guys in golf carts accomplishing nothing except making neighbors feel stupid for paying. Mrs. Henderson, 81-year-old retired teacher, pulled me aside at her mailbox. "That woman's charging us for security that doesn't exist while terrorizing our neighbors. Some of us are getting fed up with her nonsense." The next morning, Buck escalated to pure comedy. He arrived with an actual chain, planning to impound my 1987 Ford tractor by hooking it to his golf cart. Basic physics should have warned him. 2,000-pound tractor versus glorified lawnmower with delusions of grandeur. I watched from my porch as Buck wrapped chain around my tractor's axle, then attached it to his cart's trailer hitch. The moment he hit accelerator, Newton's laws took over. Chain snapped taut, golf cart's rear lifted off ground like a seesaw, and Buck tumbled backward into a fresh mud puddle my cattle had thoughtfully prepared. The sound of Buck's impact, half splash, half squish, echoed across my property. I've seen newborn calves with better balance than this mall cop wallowing in cow-enriched Texas mud, polyester uniforms soaking up nature's fertilizer like an expensive sponge. 20 minutes later, Vivian's pristine Lexus arrived for damage control. She refused to leave her driver's seat, unwilling to risk designer shoes in actual dirt, while trying to coordinate Buck's rescue via cell phone. "This isn't over, Mitchell," she screamed through her cracked window. "We have connections, people who'll make your life very difficult." "Can't wait to meet them," I called back, still recording every word. The smell of diesel fuel and mud gradually faded as evening approached, replaced by familiar scents of hay and cattle settling for night. Buck's uniform was probably still drying somewhere, and Vivian's threats were getting more specific. But here's what she didn't know. Every threat, every fake citation, every ridiculous enforcement attempt was building my case. In Texas, harassment, impersonation, and fraud aren't civil matters. They're criminal ones, and I was documenting everything. Time to step up my game. Week 3 brought Vivian's nuclear option, weaponizing the entire federal government against me. If she'd channeled this creativity into legitimate business, she might have been successful. Instead, she decided to turn my ranch into ground zero for bureaucratic warfare. Monday morning exploded with a knock that rattled my windows. County health inspector stood there looking genuinely apologetic, clipboard trembling in his hands. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm required to investigate reports of illegal slaughter operations contaminating local water supply." Illegal what now? The complaint form made my blood boil, typed on official HOA letterhead, signed by concerned citizens for public safety, complete with detailed allegations about unsanitary meat processing and groundwater contamination. Pure fiction written in Vivian's distinctive corporate buzzword style. Before noon, EPA water quality team with testing equipment worth more than my truck. By afternoon, immigration agents demanding worker documentation for employees who didn't exist. The sharp smell of government disinfectant mixed with diesel fumes from their vehicles created this uniquely oppressive atmosphere that made my cattle nervous. My kitchen table disappeared under an avalanche of official paperwork. That smooth, cold government stationery that carries the weight of potential ruin. Department of Agriculture wanted vaccination records. Texas Commission on Environmental Quality demanded water usage reports. Each document felt like another shovel of dirt on my family's grave. That evening, while fielding my 7th compliance interview call, something clicked. I started researching Vivian's pattern instead of just reacting to it. What I discovered made my hands shake with rage. She'd run this exact playbook on 3 other rural families. Mrs. Peterson lost her horse farm after 18 months of fabricated violations. The Garcia family sold their vegetable operation when EPA fines hit $30,000 for contamination that testing proved never existed. Same complaints, same agencies, same outcome. Forced sales to Vivian at below-market prices. Here's where I got smart instead of mad. I filed Freedom of Information requests for every complaint against my property. The responses revealed Vivian's fatal mistake. Identical language across multiple false reports, all filed same day, all using her signature corporate terminology that no real citizen would use. In Texas, filing false government reports isn't just harassment. It's aggravated perjury, a 3rd-degree felony carrying 2 to 10 years prison time. Vivian had been committing serious crimes while hiding behind government bureaucracy. Tuesday brought my first real ally and the day's biggest surprise. Constance Winters appeared at my door, 61-year-old retired paralegal whose property bordered Sage Creek, carrying a manila folder thick as a dictionary. "Mr. Mitchell, I've been documenting what they're doing to you," she said, settling into my kitchen chair with the confidence of someone who'd spent 40 years navigating legal systems. "I think we can destroy them." Constance had discovered Vivian's signature move, using HOA letterhead to file official complaints while claiming emergency health hazard authority. This gave her false credentials with government agencies who were legally required to investigate every complaint, no matter how ridiculous. "She's not just harassing us," Constance explained, spreading evidence across my table. "She's defrauding taxpayers. Every fake investigation costs thousands in government resources." Then came the twist that changed everything. During the health inspector's 3rd visit in 6 months, he pulled me aside conspiratorially. "Mr. Mitchell, I shouldn't tell you this, but these complaints are obviously coordinated. Same person, same timing, same false allegations. Can you prove it?" He glanced around nervously. "Check the submission timestamps. All filed within minutes of each other, always on Monday mornings at exactly 8:47 a.m., like someone setting calendar reminders to file false reports. That afternoon, my daughter called from school, voice shaking. "Dad, kids are saying FBI agents keep coming to our house. Are you a criminal?" The question hit like a physical blow. Vivian wasn't just attacking my business. She was poisoning my children's sense of security and their faith in their father. The familiar weight of parental guilt mixed with white-hot rage in my chest, but instead of confronting Vivian directly, I made a strategic decision that would prove crucial later. I started feeding her confidence, letting her think she was winning while I documented every crime she committed. Constance suggested involving her nephew Marcus, a lawyer specializing in HOA fraud. "But we need overwhelming evidence first," she warned. "One angry property owner looks like sour grapes. Multiple victims with documented criminal conspiracy looks like organized crime." That weekend, sitting on my porch while another government inspection team crawled over my property, I realized something important. Vivian's escalation revealed desperation, not strength. She was panicking, making mistakes, leaving evidence everywhere. The smell of evening barbecue drifted from Sage Creek Estates, while my phone buzzed with another compliance inquiry. But now each call felt different. Instead of threats, they were building blocks for justice. Time to turn hunter into hunted. Week 4 brought Vivian's masterpiece, a full media assassination designed to destroy me on live television. She'd organized an emergency community meeting claiming my ranch posed imminent public health crisis, complete with press releases that would make CNN jealous. The community center buzzed with manufactured panic as residents clutched printed emails about agricultural contamination emergency. Vivian had outdone herself with the propaganda. Doctored photos showing my cattle terrorizing children, actually neighbor Johnson's horses, toxic water samples, muddy rain puddles, and assault weapons, my perfectly normal farm tools photographed with dramatic lighting. The thunderous sound of helicopter rotors announced Channel 7 news arriving like it was covering a natural disaster. Through my kitchen window, I watched their crew set up for what they clearly expected to be environmental Chernobyl. The metallic taste of adrenaline mixed with coffee as I realized Vivian was about to humiliate me statewide. Her staging was flawless. Crisp white blazer, concerned expression, positioned safely behind her Lexus while pointing at my dangerous operation, like she was reporting from a war zone. The performance deserved an Emmy. This man's reckless disregard for public safety has escalated beyond tolerance, she declared to cameras, voice perfectly calibrated between authority and victimhood. We've documented contamination, aggressive behavior, and now he's threatening legal action against families protecting their children. What she didn't know, my trail cameras had recorded her crew staging every piece of evidence she was presenting. While she performed for media, I had HD footage of her team moving my cattle panels to look broken, spreading manure near property lines before photos, even dumping motor oil in puddles to simulate contamination. Then came her fatal mistake. We've been forced to seek emergency authority to seize this dangerous property for community protection, Vivian announced to the reporter with dramatic flair. My blood froze. No HOA possesses seizure authority. That's exclusively government power through eminent domain. She'd just committed fraud on live television while impersonating public officials. The reporter pressed further. What legal authority does your organization have for property seizure? The Sage Creek Emergency Protection Act grants us broad enforcement powers during public health emergencies, Vivian replied confidently, holding up an official-looking document. I nearly choked on my coffee. There's no such thing as Sage Creek Emergency Protection Act. She'd literally invented fictional legislation on live TV. While this circus continued, my phone exploded with the call that changed everything. Constance's voice was shaking with excitement. Dalton, I've been investigating Sage Creek's legal structure. The HOA was never properly incorporated with the county. Their entire organization is fraudulent. What does that mean legally? Every fee collected, every violation issued, every enforcement action for the past 5 years is criminal theft. Vivian's been running an elaborate con game. The evidence was devastating. No articles of incorporation, no registered bylaws, no legal standing whatsoever. Vivian had been collecting hundreds of thousands in fees for an organization that existed only on letterhead and in her imagination. That's when the community backlash started. 3 Sage Creek residents appeared at my door looking embarrassed and furious. Tom Bradley, retired firefighter, spoke for them. Mitchell, we need to apologize. Half the neighborhood's done with Vivian's psychodrama. Our fees have tripled, she's harassing neighbors, and now she's dragging news crews into our lives. Sarah Morgan, nurse practitioner, added, she questioned my teenage daughter about your suspicious nighttime activities. That's when I realized this woman's lost her damn mind. But Vivian's psychological warfare was working. She'd started stalking my property at weird hours, parking just outside the fence line and staring at my house like some deranged ex-girlfriend. The harassment was escalating beyond property disputes into genuine stalking behavior. The breaking point came when my ex-wife called, voice tight with manufactured concern. Dalton, I've been watching the news. Maybe it's better if the kids skip this weekend until your legal troubles get resolved. What legal troubles? I haven't been charged with anything. The woman on TV said multiple agencies are investigating you. I can't risk the children's safety around all this chaos. That 10-minute conversation nearly broke me. Vivian's media manipulation was working. She was weaponizing my own children against me using fabricated fear and stolen authority. But instead of exploding, I made the strategic decision that would end this war. While Vivian celebrated her media victory, I was documenting every lie she told on camera, every false document she displayed, every illegal threat she made. That evening, my sister called from Austin. During our stress conversation, she dropped the hint I'd been too proud to consider. Jake's been asking about you since seeing the news coverage. Maybe it's time to call your cousin. Jake Mitchell, sheriff of Millbrook County. We hadn't spoken since Dad's funeral over some stupid family grudge I couldn't even remember. As helicopters circled like vultures and the smell of diesel fumes mixed with evening hay, I realized this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about stopping a criminal before she destroyed more families. Time to unleash the nuclear option. Thursday morning brought the discovery that flipped this entire war on its head. While researching property records for Marcus, I found the document that would obliterate Vivian's operation. A 1952 water rights easement with language so clear it might as well have been written in neon. Agricultural properties shall remain permanently exempt from any future residential development restrictions or homeowner association governance in perpetuity. My grandfather hadn't just bought land. He'd outsmarted future land grabbers by 70 years. Vivian's entire expanded jurisdiction was built on forged documents, but that was just the appetizer. The main course made my coffee cup slip from trembling hands. County tax records showed Vivian had been paying property taxes on my 47 acres for 3 years, claiming ownership through adverse possession via HOA management authority. She wasn't harassing me. She was stealing my land, one bureaucratic form at a time. The financial trail revealed pure criminal enterprise. Vivian had collected $127,000 in assessment fees from properties never under legal HOA jurisdiction. She'd been running a protection racket disguised as community management, targeting rural families who couldn't afford to fight back. Then Marcus called with the bombshell that changed everything. "Dalton, I've been cross-referencing her targets with recent property sales. Every family she's harassed has sold within 18 months, all to the same development company. She's not just stealing fees, she's orchestrating forced sales for massive land speculation profits." The scope was staggering. Vivian's operation had generated over $2.3 million in fraudulent property acquisitions across 3 counties. This wasn't neighborhood drama. This was organized crime. That afternoon brought the family conversation I'd been avoiding for 3 years. My sister called with news that made my chest tight. "Jake knows about your situation. He's been quietly investigating complaints about fake law enforcement in his jurisdiction." Jake Mitchell. My cousin, sheriff of Millbrook County, former Texas Ranger, and the person I'd been too proud to contact since our stupid argument at Dad's funeral. We'd fought over who inherited his hunting rifle. Seems ridiculous now, but family pride runs deep in Texas dirt. "He specifically asked about you yesterday," she continued. "Said he's been seeing reports about fraudulent police impersonation targeting ranchers. Dalton, he's concerned." The weight of realization hit like a physical blow. While I'd been documenting crimes and building cases, Jake had been investigating the same criminal operation from his end. We'd been fighting the same war from different sides, separated only by stubborn pride. "I can't just call asking for favors," I protested weakly. "This isn't about favors. Jake took an oath to protect citizens from exactly this kind of predator. Vivian's not just harassing you. She's running organized crime in his county." That evening, reviewing my evidence while cattle settled for night, the moral calculus became crystal clear. Every folder contained enough felonies to imprison Vivian for decades. Fraud, theft, impersonation, filing false reports, attempted property theft, organized conspiracy. The question wasn't whether she'd committed crimes. It was how many families she'd destroy while I played stubborn. Constance had identified 11 families currently under attack. 3 had already sold and lost their generational land. 2 were facing bankruptcy from compliance costs. 1 elderly couple was considering suicide rather than lose their farm. My pride was enabling a predator. Marcus had the legal strategy ready. Confront Vivian with overwhelming evidence, demand complete cessation and full restitution, or face immediate criminal prosecution. But having sheriff backing meant instant justice instead of years of court battles. As the smell of evening hay mixed with distant diesel fumes, I made the decision that would end this war and maybe repair something more important than property lines. Time to call my cousin and finish this fight properly. Friday morning, I swallowed 3 years of stubborn pride and dialed the number I should have called weeks ago. My hands shook like I was confessing murder instead of asking family for help fighting actual criminals. "Dalton?" Jake's voice carried surprise mixed with relief. "Damn, cousin, I was wondering when you'd call." "Jake, I screwed up. I should have reached out sooner about what's happening." "You mean the fraudulent law enforcement operation terrorizing ranchers in my county?" Steele replaced warmth in his voice. "I've been investigating complaints about fake badges and illegal citations for 2 months. Funny thing is, your name keeps appearing as the primary target." That conversation lasted 2 hours and healed 3 years of family wounds. Jake had been building his own case from the law enforcement side, tracking complaints about impersonation, investigating suspicious property sales, documenting abuse of government resources. We'd been fighting the same war from different trenches while our stupid pride kept us apart. "Bring me everything you've got," he said finally. If you're right about the scope, we're looking at organized criminal enterprise that could send people to prison for decades. Monday's war council at Marcus's law office felt like planning D-Day. The conference table disappeared under evidence that looked like prosecuting organized crime. 5 years of documented fraud, 847 photographs, 23 hours of video, financial records proving systematic theft spanning 3 counties. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the sharp scent of toner from hundreds of copied documents as Marcus laid out our strategy with surgical precision. We're attacking from 4 directions simultaneously. Criminal charges for fraud and impersonation, civil lawsuit for damages and theft, administrative complaints for unlicensed real estate practices, and media exposure to prevent future victims. Jake reviewed evidence with the methodical intensity that made him legendary during his Texas Ranger days. When he finished, his weathered face was granite hard. This is the most sophisticated property theft operation I've encountered in 15 years. She's been running a goddamn criminal empire disguised as community management. The financial devastation was staggering. $127,000 stolen in illegal fees, $47,000 in manufactured compliance costs, $89,000 in lost business income, plus punitive damages for intentional malicious conduct. Conservative liability estimate exceeded $400,000, enough to bankrupt Vivian and send clear warnings to other wannabe property thieves. Constance had recruited 10 victimized families, transforming personal revenge into community justice movement. Mrs. Patterson, whose late husband earned his ranch with Korean War disability payments. The Rodriguez family, whose vegetable farm fed half the county before Vivian's harassment destroyed their customer base. Each story added fuel to our righteous fire. Marcus shared crucial legal knowledge most people never learn. When facing HOA disputes, immediately demand incorporation documents and jurisdiction maps from county clerk. Legitimate organizations provide these within days. Fraudulent operations make excuses, stall, or refuse entirely. That single request could save families thousands in illegal fees and years of harassment. Jake added street-smart advice. Anyone can buy fake badges online for $20, but impersonating peace officers carries serious jail time in Texas. Always demand actual law enforcement credentials with badge numbers you can verify. Real cops never refuse this request. Trail cameras designed for hunting work perfectly for documenting property harassment. Cellular models upload evidence automatically to cloud storage that courts accept as authentic. Our technical preparation was meticulous. Professional security cameras replaced my amateur phone recordings, creating broadcast-quality evidence that would devastate any courtroom. Marcus connected us with investigative reporter Sarah Williams, whose HOA corruption exposés had sparked legislative reforms statewide. The psychological coaching proved equally crucial. Constance, drawing from 40 years of legal experience, taught me emotional discipline. Bullies want explosive reactions they can use against you. Stay calm, document everything, let evidence destroy them instead of giving them ammunition for victim blaming. Alliance Building revealed unexpected support. 3 county commissioners had received dozens of constituent complaints about Vivian's operation. State Representative's office was drafting legislation protecting agricultural properties from HOA overreach. Even federal agencies were investigating her systematic abuse of government resources. Jake established our timeline with military precision. 30-day ultimatum demanding complete cessation and full restitution. She complies or faces immediate criminal prosecution. No negotiation, no second chances, no mercy for predators. But personal motivation kept this from being purely tactical. Vivian was simultaneously terrorizing Mrs. Henderson, an 81-year-old Gold Star widow whose husband died in Vietnam. She was extorting $300 monthly from single mother whose teenage son she'd falsely accused of gang activity for wearing basketball jerseys. These weren't property disputes. They were attacks on vulnerable families who couldn't afford lawyers. The evening before our ultimatum, Jake and I sat on my porch sharing bourbon and watching cattle settle for night, the familiar sounds of lowing mixed with distant highway traffic while 3 years of stubborn silence finally ended. Should have called you sooner, I admitted. Should have reached out myself, he replied. Family's more important than pride. Tomorrow, we'd offer Vivian one chance at surrender. After that, we'd unleash everything we had. Justice was coming. Tuesday morning brought Vivian's most vicious escalation yet, abandoning all pretense and launching a campaign of pure terror. Sensing that the walls were closing in, she decided if she couldn't steal my property legally, she'd destroy it through sabotage and psychological warfare. Dawn revealed the first attack. My cattle water tanks had been riddled with holes overnight. creating muddy disasters that would take days to repair. But worse than property damage was the attempted murder of my livestock. Someone had dumped motor oil and antifreeze into the remaining clean water, enough poison to kill every animal on my ranch. The metallic smell of punctured steel mixed with the sickening chemical stench of contaminated water as I realized how close I'd come to losing everything. If my cattle had drunk that poison before I discovered it, 70 years of family legacy would have died in a single night. My feed storage shed told an even more terrifying story. The lock had been superglued solid, then someone had cut ventilation holes and poured gasoline inside, creating a fire hazard that could have burned down my entire operation while I slept. The sharp chemical smell made my eyes water and my cattle skittish. But Vivian's biggest mistake was underestimating my new security system. The upgraded cameras captured everything in prosecutorial quality HD. Buck Hargrove and his fake enforcement team trespassing at 2:47 a.m., faces clearly visible as they committed multiple felonies with criminal intent. "Got you, you psychotic bastards," I whispered, watching Buck's dumpy silhouette fumble with bolt cutters while his accomplice poured poison into my water tanks. The footage was so clear you could see the brand names on their vandalism tools. Marcus filed criminal complaints before breakfast. Real sheriff's deputies arrived that afternoon, treating the investigation with deadly seriousness that comes when criminals target law enforcement families. Jake's reputation ensured this case got priority treatment. But Vivian's panic response revealed complete psychological breakdown. She filed a restraining order claiming I'd been stalking and terrorizing her with dangerous farm equipment. Her petition included doctored photos showing me menacingly operating my tractor near her property. Normal ranch work twisted into evidence of intimidation through creative editing. The hearing was a masterclass in organized perjury. Vivian brought 3 paid witnesses who testified under oath that I'd threatened to run them down with machinery and poison their children with animal waste. Pure fiction delivered with Hollywood-level performances. Judge Martinez looked skeptical but granted temporary protection pending investigation. Walking out of that courtroom felt like being gut-punched. Vivian had successfully weaponized the legal system to paint me as the dangerous aggressor while she committed actual crimes. Her community terror campaign escalated immediately. Every Sage Creek resident received threatening letters on fake legal letterhead, warning of criminal liability for conspiring with agricultural terrorists. The psychological manipulation was sophisticated and effective. Mrs. Patterson, the 73-year-old Gold Star widow who'd been supporting me, received the most vicious letter claiming her late husband's military benefits could be seized for restitution if she continued enabling property terrorism. The cruelty was breathtaking. Then Vivian crossed the line that turned this personal. She attacked my children directly. My ex-wife called in tears after receiving safety concerns from fake CPS investigators warning about hazardous agricultural exposure at my ranch. "Dalton, I can't let the kids visit while you're under investigation for child endangerment," she sobbed. "They said you're exposing minors to contaminated water and dangerous chemicals." "What contamination? What chemicals? Those are lies." The woman had official documentation. She knew details about the kids' school, their medical records. How could she fake that? That 30-minute conversation nearly broke me. Vivian was successfully stealing my children using institutional fraud and psychological terrorism. The manipulation was so sophisticated it fooled even people who knew me. Thursday brought attempted bribery with explicit threats. Through an intermediary, Vivian offered $150,000 cash for me to relocate quietly and sign documents waiving future legal claims. When I refused, the messenger delivered her ultimatum. "Accidents happen on ranches," he said coldly. "Equipment fails. Sometimes stubborn people get hurt when they don't listen to reasonable offers." But Friday brought the twist that changed everything. Private investigator Ray Morrison, whom Vivian had hired for opposition research, contacted me directly with evidence that would destroy her completely. "Mr. Mitchell, I can't do what she's requesting," Morrison said, looking genuinely disturbed. He handed me a check Vivian had written for $15,000 with evidence fabrication in the memo line. "She wants me to plant drugs on your property, file false domestic violence reports, create fake financial crimes. That's not investigation. That's felony conspiracy." The recorded conversations Morrison provided were devastating. Vivian discussing permanently destroying Mitchell's credibility through planted evidence, fabricated charges, and manufactured scandals. She'd crossed from harassment into serious organized crime. Jake arrived within minutes of my call. After reviewing Morrison's evidence and recordings, his expression was pure predator. She just handed us enough felonies to put her away for 20 years. Time to end this. That night, as Jake's patrol car made security rounds and the familiar sounds of cattle mixed with evening wind, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks, certainty that justice was coming. Vivian had finally destroyed herself. Monday morning brought Vivian's most diabolical escalation, a full-scale psychological warfare campaign designed to turn my entire community into weapons against me. If she couldn't steal my property quietly, she'd orchestrate my public destruction through manufactured crisis. She organized an emergency community safety summit at the high school auditorium, sending official-looking invitations to county commissioners, state representatives, media outlets, and federal agencies. The theme, agricultural terrorism threatening public safety, immediate government intervention required. Her preparation was breathtakingly evil. Professional PowerPoint presentation with aerial photos of my ranch marked as contamination zones, fabricated CDC reports claiming livestock disease outbreak, and testimonials from paid actors posing as medical professionals warning about imminent public health catastrophe. But her masterpiece was the staged incident that nearly destroyed me. Sunday night, Vivian's crew orchestrated a fake cattle break-in at an expensive Sage Creek home, causing $12,000 in property damage while terrifying elderly residents who genuinely believed they were under attack. The sound of splintering wood and terrified screaming filled the night as confused cattle trampled through manicured gardens while homeowners called 911, believing they were experiencing home invasion. My heart broke watching my gentle animals used as weapons in someone else's criminal scheme. News crews arrived suspiciously fast, clearly coordinated response. Vivian performed for cameras with Oscar-worthy grief, holding pictures of damaged property while standing next to traumatized elderly victims. "These beautiful people have lived here peacefully for years," she sobbed convincingly. "Now they're afraid to sleep in their own homes because one man refuses to control his dangerous animals." The media coverage was devastating. Rogue cattle terrorize elderly residents. Ranch owners' negligence threatens community. Dangerous livestock operations sparks safety crisis. Each headline drove daggers deeper into my reputation and livelihood. My phone exploded with death threats from strangers. "Control your animals or we'll control you." "Terrorist rancher should be in prison." "Someone should burn down your operation." The venom was overwhelming and constant, but worse than stranger hatred was community isolation. Neighbors who'd known me for years suddenly crossed streets to avoid conversation. Local businesses refused my calls. Even my feed supplier demanded cash payment up front, claiming insurance liability concerns. Tuesday brought the most vicious personal attack yet. Vivian contacted my children's school claiming I was under federal investigation for bioterrorism and might pose danger to students during pickup. The humiliation of explaining to my teenagers why their classmates were asking if their dad was a terrorist nearly broke me completely. Wednesday escalated to financial warfare. Anonymous complaints flooded my business customers claiming health department had shut down my operation for contamination violations. 3 major restaurant contracts canceled within hours, costing me $40,000 in immediate income. My insurance company called demanding emergency property inspection after receiving multiple reports of dangerous conditions requiring immediate policy cancellation. Banking relationships became strained as loan officers questioned reputational risk from continuing business with controversial agricultural operations. The psychological pressure was crushing. Vivian's campaign had successfully isolated me from community, customers, family, and financial resources. Every day brought new fabricated crises requiring expensive responses that drained my savings while destroying my reputation. Thursday brought her most sophisticated attack: federal agency coordination. Simultaneous investigations launched by EPA, USDA, OSHA, and Homeland Security based on credible reports of agricultural bioterrorism activities. Each agency demanded immediate compliance inspections costing thousands in consultant fees. The paperwork avalanche was intentionally overwhelming. Environmental impact assessments, biosecurity protocols, equipment certifications, worker safety compliance, bureaucratic requirements designed to bankrupt small operations through administrative costs alone. Friday's revelation nearly destroyed my sanity. My ex-wife called sobbing after receiving official notification that Child Protective Services was investigating me for exposing minors to biological hazards during weekend visits. The threat of losing my children was the final psychological weapon in Vivian's arsenal. "They have medical reports claiming the kids were exposed to dangerous pathogens," she wept. Professional documentation about contamination risks. How can I fight government agencies with expert testimony? That conversation lasted an hour of manufactured terror overriding parental instinct. Vivian had successfully weaponized my own children against me using institutional fraud so sophisticated it fooled protective mothers. But while my world crumbled publicly, Jake had been working behind scenes. His investigation had uncovered connections to a larger criminal network operating across multiple counties. Vivian wasn't just targeting me. She was part of organized conspiracy stealing rural properties through systematic fraud. Saturday night, as I sat on my porch reviewing the week's devastation while police helicopters circled overhead and protesters gathered at my gate demanding my immediate removal, Jake called with news that made my hands shake. "Tomorrow's community meeting isn't just about your property anymore," he said grimly. "Federal investigators are attending. Vivian's about to discover that her criminal enterprise has attracted very serious attention from very serious people." The smell of diesel fumes mixed with evening hay as media trucks gathered like vultures for tomorrow's final confrontation. One way or another, this war was ending. Sunday morning felt like the world holding its breath. The high school auditorium overflowed with 400-plus people crammed into seats designed for 250, while media trucks formed a siege line in the parking lot. The air tasted electric with anticipation as reporters applied makeup and checked equipment for what everyone sensed would be explosive television. Commissioner Bradley's hands trembled as he called the emergency session to order. "We're here to address allegations regarding agricultural operations that allegedly pose imminent public safety threats." And Vivian commanded the stage like a prosecutor delivering death penalty closing arguments. Her presentation was Oscar-worthy. Professional slides displaying fabricated evidence, fake medical reports, and coached testimony designed to destroy me completely. "For months, we've pleaded with one man to follow basic community standards," she declared, voice perfectly calibrated between authority and victimhood. "But when elderly citizens are terrorized in their homes and children can't walk safely because of dangerous livestock, tolerance becomes criminal negligence." The crowd murmured angry agreement as she displayed horrifying photos from Sunday's staged cattle incident. Mrs. Morgan testified tearfully about being trapped in my bedroom while vicious animals destroyed my property and threatened my life, her performance worthy of daytime television drama. "This isn't about property rights," Vivian built to crescendo. "This is about protecting innocent families from agricultural terrorism. I formally demand immediate emergency seizure of this dangerous operation before someone dies." Commissioner Bradley nodded gravely. "Based on overwhelming evidence of public endangerment, I'm authorized to order immediate—" "Commissioner, before any official action, you need to see additional evidence." Jake's voice sliced through the auditorium like a cavalry charge, carrying 15 years of Texas Ranger authority that instantly transformed heated emotion into deadly serious law enforcement business. 400 heads turned as he rose from the back, his presence changing everything. "Sheriff Mitchell, do you have information relevant to these proceedings?" Bradley asked, voice suddenly nervous. "I have documentation of the most sophisticated criminal enterprise I've encountered in my career," Jake replied, walking down the center aisle while absolute silence followed his every step, "including video evidence of every staged incident presented here tonight." The tension became suffocating as Jake connected his laptop to the projection system. The first video showed Buck Hargrove cutting my fence at 11:43 p.m. Sunday with criminal precision. The second revealed Vivian's crew using ATVs and air horns to terrorize confused cattle into Mrs. Morgan's yard while she waited safely in a hotel room they'd paid for. "Ladies and gentlemen, every single piece of evidence presented tonight is either completely fabricated or deliberately staged," Jake announced as shocked gasps echoed through the crowd. "You're witnessing organized criminal fraud designed to steal private property through psychological terrorism." Vivian's face drained to corpse white, but she tried desperately maintaining control. "These are pathetic fabrications by criminals trying to avoid—" "Ma'am, you'll remain silent while evidence is presented," Jake commanded with voice that could stop traffic. The next exhibits annihilated her completely. Bank records revealing $340,000 embezzled from HOA accounts over 5 years. Recorded phone conversations exposing bribery attempts and conspiracy to plant illegal evidence. Federal documentation proving systematic targeting of rural families for forced property acquisition through organized fraud. "This has nothing to do with community safety," Jake continued, his conviction silencing every whisper in the packed auditorium. "This is organized crime using institutional manipulation to steal generational family property through systematic terror campaigns." The crowd's energy shifted like an earthquake. Confusion transformed into white-hot rage as 400 people simultaneously realized they'd been manipulated, lied to, and weaponized by criminals who'd stolen their money while using them as unwitting accomplices. Sarah Williams, the investigative reporter, delivered the killing blow. "Sheriff Mitchell, are you stating that this entire emergency session was organized by criminals to legitimize property theft?" "I'm stating that Vivian Cromwell and her criminal associates are under active federal investigation for organized fraud, conspiracy, theft, impersonation of peace officers, filing hundreds of false government reports, and attempting to steal private property through criminal enterprise," Jake replied with absolute finality. The auditorium exploded into chaos. Residents shouted demands for arrests, media crews stampeded toward the stage, and Vivian stood frozen as her criminal empire collapsed in real time before hundreds of witnesses and live television coverage. That's when I stood and walked to the microphone. The crowd quieted instantly, every eye focused on the man they'd been told was a terrorist, but who clearly was just an exhausted rancher defending his family's legacy. "You know what I learned fighting this war?" I said, voice carrying across the silent auditorium. "Bullies count on good people being too tired, too scared, or too broke to fight back. But when they threaten your children's inheritance and turn your neighbors into weapons with lies and fear, you document every crime, preserve every threat, and trust that truth will always defeat organized evil." The applause started like distant thunder, then built into a roar that shook the building as 400 people realized they'd witnessed justice destroying tyranny. Commissioner Bradley's voice cracked. "All complaints against Mitchell Ranch are dismissed. Federal prosecutors will handle criminal charges immediately." Behind us, handcuffs clicked as Vivian's reign of terror finally ended. 6 months later, justice tasted sweeter than my grandmother's peach cobbler. Vivian faced 23 felony charges, including organized fraud, theft, impersonation, and conspiracy. Her 3-week trial ended with a 15-year prison sentence plus $1.2 million restitution. Buck Hargrove and his fake enforcement clowns got 18 months each for impersonation and property destruction. The civil lawsuit delivered Texas-sized satisfaction. Our class action representing 47 defrauded families resulted in $2.8 million judgment against Vivian's criminal empire. Every stolen penny recovered, plus punitive damages that sent crystal-clear warnings to other wannabe property thieves statewide. Sage Creek Estates elected entirely new leadership with Tom Bradley, the retired firefighter who'd supported me, as president. Their first act eliminated all harassment policies and phantom security contracts. Monthly HOA fees dropped 60% once they removed Vivian's fraudulent vendor billing and imaginary services. My ranch business exploded beyond wildest dreams. Media coverage transformed me into a folk hero for family farmers fighting corporate predators. Orders increased 400% from customers nationwide wanting to support ranchers defending generational land. I hired 3 additional hands and expanded operations to meet overwhelming demand. The personal healing meant everything. My children now beam with pride telling classmates about their dad's ranch, regularly bringing friends for educational tours. My ex-wife publicly apologized for doubting me, admitting sophisticated psychological manipulation had fooled even protective mothers. Family barbecues feel genuine again. Jake and I rebuilt our relationship stronger than steel. Fighting organized crime together reminded us that family bonds transcend petty disagreements about inheritance disputes we couldn't even remember clearly. We meet monthly for bourbon and brotherhood, planning community protection strategies. The legal precedent became nationwide model. Marcus's expanded law firm now handles 127 similar cases across 5 states, using our documentation methods to protect families from harassment campaigns. Other victims regularly call seeking advice about defeating HOA fraud through systematic evidence gathering. Millbrook County passed the Property Owner Protection Ordinance, requiring verification before processing HOA complaints. Criminal penalties now apply for filing false reports, plus mandatory audits for organizations claiming authority over non-member properties. Similar legislation spread across Texas after legislators viewed our video evidence. The State Rural Heritage Protection Act passed unanimously, limiting HOA authority over agricultural operations while creating serious criminal penalties for organized harassment of farming families. Our case study proved that systematic documentation defeats even sophisticated criminal enterprises. But my proudest achievement remains the Rural Heritage Scholarship Fund established with settlement money. We've awarded $240,000 helping 63 farm kids attend college while preserving agricultural knowledge. Recipients study veterinary medicine, sustainable farming, and rural law. ensuring future generations can defend family land. Conservation efforts exceeded expectations. Settlement funds purchased adjacent 35 acres. Vivian had targeted for development, permanently protecting 82 acres of family ranch for my grandchildren. The expanded operation supports wildlife habitat restoration and educational programs teaching sustainable agriculture. Former enemies became genuine friends. Multiple Sage Creek families buy beef directly from my ranch, supporting local agriculture while getting superior meat. Mrs. Morgan, terrorized during Vivian's staged incident, became my best customer and brings grandchildren for ranch education tours monthly. Local schools integrated our story into civics curriculum teaching property rights, legal research, and community organizing. Students learn how ordinary citizens document criminal activity and use legal systems protecting families from organized predators. Every October, Heritage Day's celebration brings 1,500 visitors to the ranch for education, entertainment, and community healing. Families enjoy hayrides, learn about agriculture, meet law enforcement heroes, and celebrate justice defeating organized crime through citizen determination. Standing on my porch last weekend, watching my cattle graze peacefully while children from Sage Creek played with ranch dogs, I reflected on this incredible journey. The evening air carried familiar scents of hay and barbecue while laughter echoed across land my grandfather would be proud to see thriving. 5 years ago, I thought I was just defending my ranch, I told festival visitors. Turns out we were protecting every family's right to live peacefully without being terrorized by criminals with fake authority and clipboard intimidation. The takeaway remains simple. Verify HOA authority through county records, document everything from first contact, and remember that bullies succeed when good people are too exhausted to fight back. Truth and persistence always defeat organized deception. Share your HOA nightmare stories in the comments, whether you're currently fighting harassment or want to warn others about red flags. Your experience might save another family from years of criminal targeting. If you enjoyed watching justice served with Texas-sized satisfaction, hit subscribe to HOA Stories for more tales about ordinary heroes who refused backing down when predators came calling. Next week, fake parking authority tried towing church cars. Too bad pastor used to be federal prosecutor.
Thanks for watching HOA Stories. If this episode made you laugh or shake your head at HOA madness, hit that like button and drop your opinion below. We post HOA Karen chaos and neighborhood showdowns every week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the next unbelievable story.